It's now 9:20 on Saturday evening, August 12th. I've noticed I've got a nice umbrella of dark sky overhead, so I would say we've achieved sky dark within the middle 60 degrees of the sky. As mentioned before, the sidereal clock is not advancing nearly as quickly now that the sun is setting earlier and earlier. So you get out earlier and earlier in the evening and the stars almost appear to be in the same place. Not quite. Obviously we're looking at the Dumbbell Nebula M27 as a kicker. I've done some adjustments to the camera position and also the settings. I didn't like the pixelation that was coming out last night. All I could do was make jokes about it being pointillistic art. So, and I also repositioned slightly the screen, so we got back to having the bar, the three regions of the screen, the high contrast region, the mid contrast region with the greatest magnitudinal depth, and the bright region at the top of the screen where we start to lose things. We'll try to position our studies of the evening right in the middle third high contrast luminosity region. We've got about 30 to 35 studies this evening. In the 6950 to 6999 series, I'm probably going to capture 7002 just so I can say I've done it. This is an open cluster in Delphinus, 5 arc minutes in size. Not a lot of specification other than the distance, so there's nothing about how disparate the magnitudes or how widely spaced the stars are. We're just going to have to look at it. I suspect it may not actually be an open cluster, just an assemblage of stars, probably past being gravitationally bound together. NGC 6950, we have to go through these quickly to keep the video as reasonably short as possible. Astronomers may note tonight is the peak of the Perseids. We may be seeing a few trailers going through the screen, as well as satellites. The best way to tell the difference is the satellites tend to have a constant luminosity in a straight line, whereas any meteors passing through the field will waver a bit in both luminosity and in their motion. What we're going to look at here now is NGC 6954. We've had to skip a few that were too far north. It's a galaxy in Delphinus, magnitude 13.2, 1 by 0.6 arc minutes, so an obliquely presented spiral. 183 million light years distant. Probably a galaxy about the size of our own Milky Way, maybe 90 to 100,000 light years in diameter. While we're having a local event here, the Grant County Fair, where the Perseid shower, however, will be visible all over the planet. The radiant will be from Perseus. It should be rising on the eastern horizon, maybe sometime around 10:30, and that's when we're going to see the bulk of the meteors streaking across the sky. Here we have NGC 6955, a galaxy in Delphinus, magnitude 13.6, fully face on, 1.4 arc minutes in size, a spiral, 365 million light years distant, and it would be probably 200,000 light years, twice the size of our Milky Way, and about 25% larger than the Andromeda galaxy. We may have be a little early for the first two galaxies, and we may have to consider reviewing them later on in the evening, but I can't really tell. However, this one should be bright enough to be easily made out. NGC 6956, galaxy once again in Delphinus, magnitude 12.3, face on 2 by 1.9 arc minutes, 211 million light years distant, and this one too is larger than the Andromeda galaxy. NGC 6957 is another Delphinus galaxy. Magnitude 14.4, smallish, 0.7 by 7, another face on. This one's 363 million light years distant, probably a little bit larger than our own Milky Way galaxy. Like all of these galaxies in Delphinus, they all roam for about right around the celestial equator in terms of their sky position, which suggests that maybe we're losing a magnitude or so in terms of the reach of the scope, given the brighter more atmosphere and slightly brighter sky in those directions. Here we have our first galaxy of the evening in Aquarius, NGC 6959, magnitude 13.7, smallish, 0.6 by 0.3 arc minutes, so an oblate presentation. It's a lenticular spiral, 168 million light years distant, so it's probably somewhere in the realms of 75,000 light years in diameter. And we're right along the celestial equator, pretty close to it. Here we have a supernova remnant, and we had a look at it in color last night under better conditions. This is NGC 6960, the Witch's Broom, in Cygnus. This is called the Western Veil. It's magnitude 7, 210 by 160 arc minutes, 1,500 light years distant. And it's pretty far north, 30 degrees, so it's in the sky's middle third. However, I did notice there were some high, thin clouds today. And there was some variation in the cloud density, so that could be a factor in some of our views, but I am actually seeing a little bit of the remnant, and I believe, and I have to check this out, and I still haven't done it, that's 61 Cygni, that 4.8 magnitude star that's kind of line of sight with the veil. NGC 6961 is a galaxy again in Aquarius, magnitude 13.7. 0.6 by 0.5 arc minutes. It is analytical. It doesn't state what class, but given those parameters there, I'd say it's probably an E3. 171 million light years distant. 21 degrees above the celestial equator, so we should get a pretty good view of this if we can actually see it on the screen. I'll have to check that out tomorrow. Just a click or so from 6961 galaxy is a brighter, larger galaxy in Aquarius. NGC 6962, magnitude 12.1, 2.9 by 2.2 arc minutes, so kind of super oblate, spiral with a large bar, 191 million light years distant. Given that size, it's probably somewhere about 175,000 light years in diameter. We're 19 degrees above the celestial equator. Hoping this turns out to be NGC 6964. We had to skip a star. Galaxy in Aquarius, magnitude 13, 1.7 by 1.3. It's an elliptical 4 with some peculiarities. It's located 174 million light years distant, so its size is somewhere between that of our Milky Way and the Andromeda Galaxy, and it's just above the celestial equator. Just a click away from NGC 6964 is NGC 6965, another galaxy in Aquarius, magnitude 14, face on 0.7 by 0.7 arc minutes, a spiral of a lenticular class O, 194 million light years distant. That makes it kind of a super dwarf, maybe 50, 75,000 light years in diameter, and just above the celestial equator. Just a click away from NGC 6965 is Galaxy 6967. The intervening was one of those starry studies that aren't really included, which is about 25% of the catalog. It's a galaxy in Aquarius, magnitude 13.1, oblately presented, 0.9 by 0.6 arc minutes, a spiral with a lowercase a, 168 million light years distant, so it's smaller, probably 75 to 80,000 light years in diameter. NGC 6968 is a galaxy in Aquarius, magnitude 14, 1.5 by 1.1 arc minutes, at a lenticular class O spiral, 279 million light years distant, so it's about the size of Messier 31, the Andromeda Galaxy. We've gone a little bit south now of the celestial equator by about 8 degrees. Now we've headed back north to Delphinus, NGC 6969 galaxy. Magnitude 14, this one's an Edgioner, 1.1 by 0.3 arc minutes, a spiral, a lowercase a, 212 million light years distant, which pretty much does put it in the size of the Milky Way, about 100,000 light years across. We're now almost 8 degrees northern declination. Look for something spiky on the screen. NGC 6971 is a galaxy in Delphinus, magnitude 13.7, 1.1 by 0.9 football-shaped galaxy, spiral with a lowercase b, if you want to look it up, 248 million light years distant. So it's another Milky Way sized galaxy. It's about almost 6 degrees north declination. NGC 6972 is another galaxy in Delphinus, magnitude 13.3, 1.1 by 0.5 arc minutes, so a suboblate spiral with a lowercase a, 204 million light years distant, about the size of our own galaxy, 10 degrees almost above the celestial equator. NGC 6974 is another part of the Veil Nebula. In Cygnus, 1500 light years distant, almost 32 degrees north declination. I'm not sure whether we're going to see much of anything on the screen, but at least we've captured the field of stars in which it would be. You may see some faint luminosity, given the fact there's no magnitude listed for this study. Well, we're halfway through the series tonight, NGC 6975. I haven't caught a meteor yet in the screen, but I've been looking mostly at the handset. It's a galaxy in Aquarius. It's also NGC 6976, so I guess we don't need to go there. It's magnitude 14, 1.3 by 1.1, football-shaped galaxy. 272 million light years distant, so it's probably just a little shy of the Andromeda galaxy at 152,000 light years in diameter. We're almost minus 6 degrees declination, so we've probably lost a magnitude or so in reach, but the sky is getting darker. I didn't even hear a click on this one. NGC 6977, I skipped over 76 because it was duplicate. Galaxy in Aquarius, magnitude 13.2, 1.3 by 0.9 arc minutes, football shape, spiral with a large bar, 271 million light years distant, so it's going to be up closer to the Andromeda galaxy than our own in terms of its actual diameter in light years. We're still at minus 5, almost minus 6 degrees below the celestial equator. Well, we're clearly part of some kind of galaxy group, whether they're gravitationally bound or not. Didn't hear much motion here either until 6978, galaxy in Aquarius. Magnitude 13.3, they all seem to be about the same brightness. This is a little larger, 1.5 by 0.7 arc minutes, 272 million light years distant, which puts it probably a little bit larger, maybe 200,000 light years in diameter than the great Andromeda galaxy. NGC 6979 is another part of the Veil Nebula. In Cygnus, it's very small, 3 by 2 arc minutes, so it's just some luminous portion. There's actually other nebulosity. The whole thing's a great circle, but the magnitude variation meant that when they were discovered, they were only found patches that were bright enough to be detected. 1,500 light years distant, once again, 32 degrees north declination, so good part of the sky. I had to skip a few stars. NGC 6981 is our first globular cluster of the evening in Aquarius, also known as Messier 72. Wow, this one is magnitude 9.2. I have to amend my statement. Messier actually was able to see a 9.2 magnitude galaxy, 5.9 arc minutes in size, magnitude 14.2 are its brightest stars, 55,000 light years distant, minus 12.5 degrees. This blows me away, so now I have a new baseline for Messier globular clusters, 9.2. That's astonishing that he was able to make this baby out. Must be something about the core. Well, if you can remember where Messier 72 was on the screen, that gives you an idea where to look in terms of these galaxies. The go-to has been pretty good this evening, and it's in probably the best part of the screen for resolving faint studies. This is NGC 6985, galaxy in Aquarius. 14.5 magnitude, maybe the faintest we've seen this evening. 1.5 by 0.8 arc minutes, so almost a pure oblate presentation. Spiral with a lowercase a. 259 million light years distant. Given its size, once again, a rival to the great Andromeda galaxy. However, it is minus 11 degrees in declination. Now we're going a bit deeper south, minus almost 18.5 degrees. declination, NGC 6986, and as you might suspect, it's in Capricornus. Magnitude 13.6, 1 by 0.6 arc minutes, so oblate. 384 million light years distant, and I do believe the Messier 31, the Andromeda Galaxy, would be about 360 at 1 arc minute, so this is larger than that. So it's a spiral lenticular. It's also probably quite bright, because I don't think the Messier 31 would be much more than 14.5 magnitude. So this is about a whole magnitude brighter than the great Andromeda Galaxy would be at this distance. Okay, we've got a little further north now to Delphinus, NGC 6988 Galaxy. Maybe the faintest tonight, magnitude 15.7 by 0.7 arc minutes. It's simply a spiral, 210 million light years distant, which pretty much puts it at 50 to 60,000 light years in diameter. A superdwarf. We're at 10.5 degrees declination. NGC 6989 is an open cluster in Cygnus, 10 arc minutes in size, 2200 light years distant. No info on it, so perhaps it's not really a cluster except to the eye through smaller apertures. That's my speculation. 45 degrees north, in a good position of sky. It is not culminating, however. Okay, we can't go much further north than this, NGC 6991, for a nebula and open cluster in Cygnus, because it's 47.5 degrees north, and soon we'll get some aperture loss. It's 5 arc minutes in size. It's a class 3-3, which means the stars are fairly sprawling, class Roman letter 3, and they are of disparate magnitude, numeric 3, 2300 light years distant. 47.5 degrees north declination. From what I can see, not bad. The Eastern Veil, NGC 6992, supernova remnant in Cygnus, magnitude 7, 60 by 8 arc minutes in size, some 1500 light years distant, almost 32 degrees north declination. Good part of the sky, decent view in black and white. Maybe the sky's a little better tonight than I expected. However, we'll test that by looking at the Crescent Nebula a little later as we wrap up. Well, as you might be able to tell, we've gone deep south here. NGC 6993 is a galaxy in Capricornus, magnitude 13.8, 1.2 by 1 arc minute, spiral with a lowercase c, 269 million light years distant. So maybe between a little larger than our own galaxy, minus 25.5 degrees, and that's why we're losing so much of it. But I do suspect it is, in fact, on the screen, magnitude 13.8. Well, I was wondering how they're going to handle this one. NGC 6994 is an open cluster at Aquarius. It's also known as Messier 73. 9.7 magnitude, 2.8 arc minutes, 4 stars. The brightest is magnitude 10. It's a class of 4-1, which means the stars are broadly spaced, and of similar magnitude, 2,000 light years distant. Really, this is more of a multiple star system, and they're calling it, however, an open cluster. Here we're having our 5th part of the Veil Nebula. This is NGC 6995, supernova remnant, Cygnus. And how far away is it? 1,500 light years. Magnitude 7, some 12 arc minutes in size. Should turn up pretty nicely. Even at my angle I can see the nebulosity. It's some 31 degrees north, and I don't think I've captured this one in color. Maybe I'll write down these, and the next time I get out I'll set up for color again, and we'll do another little tour of the Veil. Did one last summer, I've done one last night, but only 3 components. This one looks pretty good, actually. Wow. It deserves some attention. Unless, of course, it is, in fact, the Eastern Veil component. I wish I'll have to puzzle through at a later time. NGC 6996, an open cluster in Cygnus, magnitude 10, 7 arc minutes in size, some 40 stars, class 3, so they're fairly broadly spaced. These are dissipating under the gravitational influences of the galaxy, and their brightnesses are moderate to 2, 2,300 light years distant, 45.5 degrees north. We're not blocking any of the aperture of the scope. A very rich star field. NGC 6997, an open cluster in Cygnus, magnitude 10, 7 arc-minutes in size, 2,200 light years distant, 44.5 degrees north declination. You may notice that I had to reposition the camera a little bit. We were getting a little clipping earlier. Every time I push the button, it's possible that it'll make a misadjustment in the camera alignment. 6997. Well, move along, nothing to see here. NGC 6998 is a galaxy in microscopium that we're trying to look at through our telescopium. Magnitude 14.2, face on, actually it's an elliptical, 0.7 by 0.7 arc-minutes. Wow, it would have been nice if we could see it. It's 514 million light years distant. Minus 28 degrees, and it is not culminating probably for another hour. And I don't expect to be up at that time. There we go. As it turned out, 6998 had a very close neighbor, NGC 6999, another galaxy in microscopium, 28 degrees south, magnitude 14.9 by 0.7 arc-minutes, a lenticular spiral. This one is not quite as far out, but it's 466 million light years away, which means it's probably in the 200 to 225,000 light years in diameter size, but we're unlikely to be able to see any of it. Although I see something faintly right there, which would astonish me, frankly. Well, a little bit look ahead, but we're not going to see much of it. This is a North American nebula, NGC 7000 in Cygnus, magnitude 4, but spread out over some 120 by 30 arc-minutes, which basically is something like 360, 3600. It's probably got an average surface brightness of about 13 or 14. It's an emission nebula, 1800 light years distant and 44 degrees north. I thought we'd capture it this evening because we're going to have to capture it again early. It's also spilling well outside the screen. This is not the right instrument for such a large deep sky study. Just to check conditions, this is the crescent once again, NGC 6888. It does fit nicely onto a 20 by 15 arc-minute screen, although I think they list it as 20 by 10 arc-minutes in size. There may be parts that go outside the screen. But this is our Carpe Noctem view for the evening. I've been into this now almost 55 or 56 minutes. We've covered probably 35 or so studies. Under reasonable conditions, I have yet to get out of the lights to see what it's like, but last night was spectacular. There were some thin clouds this evening. Do not expect it to be quite as nice as it was, but it was a very productive evening. Thank you for sky watching Carpe Noctem.